So, how much does marketing investment actually influence lead to close rates?
That is an interesting survey result for us because, of course, there is some kind of farcities in the market where it's like the more you spend, the more return, but that absolutely we know can't can't always be the truth. I was just on a call with a partner that we're onboarding, and they were telling me they were spending upwards of 40 and $50,000 on ad spend and seeing, one real lead net themselves out a month, which is just astronomically low. Like what a terrible experience with paid advertising to have. So all that to say, there's no magic number of the more I spend, the more I get. There is a lot of nuances with what you spend on marketing, and there's different times in the growth of your company that you may spend different amounts. But what we saw in the survey results, if I just let partners speak for themselves, was that most partners are typically spending between 2 and 10% in marketing a year over year of their revenue. So that looked like about 60% of the partners that had answered the survey that that's the typical amount they were spending. And they were seeing a fairly good return. They could say, if I was spending 2 to 10% in marketing, then my lead conversion to customer rate was between 25 and 50% on average of Microsoft leads I was receiving. The real interesting thing that we saw was that at 11 to 15% spend of marketing, and I would call this like a growth partner. You're not always spending 11 to 15% of your annual revenue in marketing, but in growth phases, you are upping that spend and you are making that greater investment for the long term. That close rate went from 25 or 20 to 50% all the way up to 51 to 75%, which was a pretty significant jump for not a ton more spend. I will say when we got up to the 20% mark, they weren't matching that return. So, like I said, it's not necessarily that just the more you spend, the more return you get. There is a sweet spot, and there is knowing when to invest more and when to kind of be in a more maintenance, certain amount of marketing goes a long way type of mode in that 2 to 10%. And when you're really aggressively trying to grow the business or make a pivot, and then you need more marketing to be able to substantiate that.